Hello, hello. Uh, Not really a necessary video to make, honestly, but I feel like I ought to explain it because I know a lot of you will not be will not really understand what's going on because it's kind of a complicated topic. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, Project Moon recently on their Twitter. They posted an announcement for change logs, uh, and it includes a massive overhaul of offense and defense level. Uh, and again, it's kind of complicated. So I know a lot of people are not going to understand a lot of what this is saying. So I feel like I figured I ought to try and explain for the people who are less technologically aware about they're less attuned to the real technical aspects of the game. So I've already read the announcement. It's not like I'm going in blind or anything. I have all my resources ready just to help explain this stuff to people who are not, more, mathematically challenged. They're not super good at visualizing what changes mean, so I'm just going to explain it to you, so you understand what this is actually saying, because it is important to understand. I'll move my mic a little closer, maybe the audio will be clearer. But it is important to understand this stuff. You don't, like, 90% of the player base, I feel like, does not pay attention to any of this stuff. But if you want to be good like me, you kind of have to learn this stuff. So, excuse me if I'm sniffling again. I just woke up recently. You know how it is. So, apologies in advance. But let's just work through this really quick. Really quick, I say. It's probably going to be a while. I also got this new nifty tool that I'm trying. It's like a pen or something. And look, you can like draw and stuff. It's crazy. You can draw on the screen and it's like really cool. So, I'm going to be trying that. Anyways, let's just read through this together. For the sake of balancing and intuitiveness, base values will change. Base values of offense defense levels will change to be similar to the unit's current level. So, okay, sure. I'm trying to come from the perspective of an average player, because like one of the things I've found that's like really it's kind of weird. If you're like, and I'm not trying to brag or anything, but it's just how it is. If you're like really good at something, like if you're good at a game or good at like a school topic, you think to yourself like, okay, I'm just like really really decent at this thing and everyone else sucks, kind of thing. But it's like it's hard to visualize what the average person's level of skill and knowledge are when you yourself are so like are so high above them in terms of skill level. And what I mean by that is like, it is hard for me to gauge what the average person understands about complex topics like offense and defense level, because this is just kind of stuff that I think about passively, and I don't really have to put any thought to it. It just comes naturally to me. But the average person would not would not be able to grasp as easily what all of this stuff means. Like, the average person who plays the game, I feel like, doesn't pay attention to offense level or defense level at all. When they play, they just look at their skills coins and they're like, dude, okay, this skill has crazy coins, so it's good. And that's pretty much the extent of their knowledge. They don't really pay attention to any of this stuff, whereas, I'm paying attention to all of this stuff kind of at the same time, passively. Excuse me. I'm paying attention to a lot of this stuff passively at the same time, so I don't really understand what it's like to not pay attention to it, is what I'm trying to get at. It's kind of like if you ever had like a bad teacher or a bad college professor, right? if you've ever had like a bad professor, usually like what they do is, you know, they lecture you on and on and on about this topic that they've been teaching about for like 30 years. And they don't really go into a lot of depth to explain a lot of the concepts that they're talking about. Like, let's say like you have a physics teacher, because physics is not physics is a hard subject for a lot of people. I remember in high school, a lot of people in like my advanced and like AP physics class were struggling, including myself. It was really bad. The curve was like disgusting. But let's take physics because it's a hard subject. For an example, right? 90% of people are going to struggle with physics. And when you get a bad, like, for example, a bad physics college professor or a bad physics high school teacher or something, they have been teaching physics and they've been living physics for like 20 plus years or something, right? So they know everything that they're teaching, like, to a T, right? They know everything. But they don't, like, the bad teachers do not understand that the people who they are teaching, like the students, are coming in with zero knowledge, right? Like, they're the layman. They have no idea. So like when they bring up something like, I don't know, like what's like a topic that most people know, so that I'm trying to keep the example like universal, like force vectors or something, right? Like force vectors. If you don't know what force vectors are, for example, it's like when you have a box on a string, and then you're like, okay, the string is like applying this many newtons upwards, and then the box is applying this many newtons downwards or whatever. And it's like equal and opposite forces or whatever, like that concept, right? If you're new to physics and new to everything, you will not understand what force vectors are at all, right? So when the professor or the teacher is like, they mention force vectors, they in their head understand everything that force vectors encompasses, because it's a complicated, it's a simple to understand, but it's a rabbit hole. Like it can be applied to a billion different things, right? And the professor who's been teaching and living this subject for like 30 years understands all of the stuff. When they hear the word force vectors, they understand immediately everything about what that topic entails. But as a student, when you hear force vectors and you don't know anything about it, when you hear the words force vectors, nothing comes to your mind because you're new to the subject and you don't understand, right? You haven't been thinking about this for the past 30 years, right? So you don't understand. Force vectors is just a random collection of words that could mean anything, right? As opposed to the teacher who's been doing nothing but force vectors for like 5 years, right? So that's why it's kind of similar to that, where it's hard for me to judge how much you would understand about offense and defense level. You as like the average player is what I mean. But like it's hard for me to understand what the average player understands about offense and defense level. Oh, my alarm's going off. Whoopsie. It's hard for me to understand what the average player knows about offense and defense level, because I have like a deeper understanding of it, I guess. It's hard to describe, but like I'm trying to describe it in a way that's not just me saying like I'm just so much better than you, because I mean that's not necessarily true. But that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like I'm the professor who's been like looking into the game for like, you know, for like 6 months or whatever, like 4 months is how long it's been out. And then, you know, the average player just like kind of autos through battles and doesn't pay attention to a lot of this stuff. So I'm just trying to bring it down to like the average level that I assume is, by explaining like as much as possible. But again, I don't know if it's going to really be the most effective, but we'll see. Basically a super long tangent to say, you know, this is going to be not easy for me, because I don't know how dumbed down, I guess, I have to bring the explanation in order for it to be coherent. But we'll try. I'll try. Anyways, offense levels were implemented as a way to prevent coin power values from inflating exceedingly. Yeah, so that is true. We'll start one at a time, right? This might be long, but we'll start one at a time. You know what? I'll change the color to red, maybe. Maybe that'll pop a little more. Like pink? We could do pink, sure. You know, I like this. I like this tool. I just got it like a day ago, so I'm still learning, but it's pretty nice. Anyways, offense levels were implemented as a way to prevent coin power values from inflating exceedingly. This is true. Excuse me. Jeez. Okay, so what they mean by this is the way that damage is calculated takes into account coin power and offense level, right? So, so this way, if you have like if you want to balance an ID, there's two different factors you can change, right? You can either give them high coin power, right? So that, because damage, again, like I said like 2 seconds ago, damage is calculated in part using coin power and in part using offense and defense level, right? So if you, for example, wanted to have an ID that had absurdly high coin power, let's say like 100 coin power, right? So like you wanted to have a gimmick on an ID where they would win like every clash and they would have like 100 coin power, right? But you didn't want them to deal like turbo nuts damage, because obviously if you see 100 coin power hitting an enemy, it's going to do turbo nuts damage, right? So you want the ID's gimmick to be like, you know, it deals normal damage, normal levels of damage, but like it would be funny if it had a really high coin power, right? And that's like the main gimmick. The way that you would do that is you have a high coin power, but you have a really, really low offense level, right? So that the coin power is super high, but the offense level is super low. So during the actual damage calculation, they kind of would balance out, and you would deal normal damage, but the coin power would be super high, so you could win every single clash, right? Like, that's how they would do that kind of gimmick, and that's what this is referring to. You know, prevent the coin power values from inflating exceedingly. What that means is if there was no offense or defense level, the only thing that would be factoring into damage is the coin power. So in that other example that we just had, if we had a coin power that's super, super high, like they wanted to do the same gimmick, but they didn't have the offense-defense level system, that skill with 100 coin power would do turbo nuts damage, and there would be no way to balance it, right? So think of it as like two separate multipliers. Like coin power is one multiplier, offense level is another multiplier, and those combined factor into your final damage, right? Those combined factor into your total damage dealt, but they both have different functionality. So like coin power affects your clashes, offense level affects your damage more. So it's just two ways of two different methods of balancing. Yeah, that I hope I did okay explaining that. Also, base offense levels of units were said to have slight variations from each other to reflect the character's stats. This is true. You can see this on things like Rabbit, where they will have you know, really bad offense level, or really bad defense level, but high offense level, right? It's just like, you know, you want someone to be a glass cannon? Okay, we'll give them high offense level, low defense level, right? That's basically what that means. Excuse me again, Jesus. However, the current method of increasing offense-defense levels by fixed coefficient, this is where things start to get a little hairy. And you might not really super understand fully what this means, so this is where I'm gonna help you understand. The current method of increasing offense and defense levels by fixed coefficients could cause this gap to widen excessively as the unit's level grows higher, because this can create a greater difference in the minimum and maximum values offense-defense levels than we intended. As level cap is raised in the long term, we've decided this needs addressing. So this is a very loaded statement, so we're going to break it into two. Okay? So the current method of increasing offense-defense levels by fixed coefficients could cause this gap to widen excessively. I kind of don't really see, like, they have an example down here later, but I feel like it's terrible. So I'm going to make my own example so that it's easier for you guys to understand what this could mean for the game, because this example is like completely terrible in my opinion. So I'm making my own examples, but the current method of increasing offense and defense levels is using fixed coefficients. The fixed coefficients that it's referring to when it says that is you can see the number. It's the offense growth number. So like let's go to Rabbit or something, right? Rabbit's the example I'm going to be using the most. The fixed coefficient that they're referring to is growth. If you don't know what coefficient is, it's just a number basically. And a fixed value. So it's a fixed coefficient, basically it just means fixed number. So in this case, the fixed coefficient would be the growth, because this number will never change. And that's the factor. The growth is the factor that determines what your level gets scaled by, essentially. So in the current system, the growth factor is very, very important. Basically is what it means. The growth factor is very important for determining offense level, because the way that it works is the growth factor is how much offense level your skill will gain per ID level up, basically. And I'll get into it in a second, but just know that the growth level is how much offense level your ID will gain per level up, okay? That's like the easiest way I can put it. Anyways, second half of it. Oh my god, dude, why is my pen so fat? Anyways, because this can create a greater difference in the minimum and maximum values than we intended, we've decided this needs addressing. Sure. So they basically decided that because this the growth coefficient using the current system of stat growth with the fixed growth modifier, that is going to be unhealthy for the game in the long term, so they're going to change it, is what that means. In consideration of future character release, the current method is not stable long term, again, what I just said, so we have adjusted the way each unit's offense and defense levels are determined. Okay, so, you know, basically these are saying the same thing, right? It's going to be unhealthy, toxic for the game balance, so they're going to change it. We're also planning on ironing out unintuitive factors where the offense and defense level can differ greatly from the unit's current level. This is big. By iron out unintuitive factors, what they're referring to is the idea that you basically, like, as a top-level player, if I'm making a video, I have to be properly informed so that I, you know, don't misinform my audience, because I know you guys are probably watching me because you're trying to learn and get better at the game most of the time. You know, it's probably not for entertainment. If it's just for entertainment, thanks. But most of the people watching my videos, I assume, are just looking for a top-level player's perspective on different aspects of the game so they can kind of learn and try and get better, right? So when I do a video, I have to be very informed on pretty much all the topics that I'm covering so that I don't accidentally say misinformation. And, you know, that would be pretty bad. So what they mean when they say unintuitive factors is the idea that basically if you want to know like how much if you want to know how much offense level an ID like Rabbit has, like let's say we go back to my most my most popular video is like how I became a top 10 player. In that video, yeah, I was rattling off a bunch of numbers in the tier list section, like reviewing every ID, like every meta relevant ID. I was rattling off a bunch of numbers in the tier list section, and those numbers you just have to memorize because they're arbitrary. That's what it means when it says unintuitive, because it's impossible to know just by glancing at the unit. It's impossible to know what their offense level would be at a certain level without just memorizing it. Like, I have the statistic memorized on Rabbit where, you know, at level 30 he will have 41 offense level, because that was just the highest, and it's just an arbitrary number. It's kind of the same thing with, like, speed. Speed is now, or, like, health, right? Like, if I were to ask you at level, like, if I were to ask you the question, like, at level 30, how much health does W Corp Don Quixote have, right? If I were to ask you that question, you probably would not be able to answer. I know it. It's 148 at level 30. Is W Corp Don HP. I'm like 99% sure, because now I'm doubting myself. So now I gotta check. But I'm like 99% sure. Let's see here. Let's go to Don. Let's see if I'm correct. I hope so, because that would be embarrassing if I wasn't. Yep, 148 HP. So I memorized that. And it's the same for offense level. Like, it's the same idea, right? Like, you would not know the offense level unless you memorized it, basically. And that's what they mean when they say it's unintuitive. Is that at a glance you would not know what the offense level of an ID is until you've seen it yourself and just memorized it, right? So, like, same thing with that. Like, you know, if I were to ask you, like, how much offense level does, you know, how much offense level does Hong Lu have at, like, you know, how much offense level does Kurkumo Hong Lu have at level 30, right? And you would not be able to tell me. You would not be able to tell me. Because it's just a random number that you just have to memorize, right? I'm pretty sure it's 35, by the way. Let's see. I'm pretty sure it's 35. It's 32. See, like, I'm wrong. It's 35 at level 35, I think. Yeah. I got them mixed up. So, yeah, even I'm wrong sometimes. At level 30, his offense level is 32. See, like, I don't fucking know that. It's impossible to know, right? Unless you've already memorized it. And it's level 35 at ID level 35. So, you know, just as an example, like, even I don't know some of this stuff. So it's very unintuitive. Excuse me. So for the example that they have here, I didn't really pay attention to this. It's kind of a bad example. But what they're saying is, you know, currently, the current system, at level 35, unit level 35, the offense level can be 45, which is true. The highest offense level IDs in the game are, like, Rabbit has an offense level of 45 at level 35, right? So, you know, sure. But, hypothetically, if you had a new unit, and you could go up to level 50, and they had a Giga-Cracked scaling, you know, it could go up to, like, 80, you know? And it's just like, okay, sure, like, some units could have, like, you know, at level 50, they could have, like, 30 offense level. At some units, at level 50, it could have, like, 80 offense level. And it's just, like, there's just a shit ton of numbers, and the range is, like, massive, right? And it's just arbitrary, massive numbers, right? And it's very, very, unintuitive to play, and to memorize, right? So, they're going to change it. So that it's more intuitive. And, you know, they say this over and over again just to make sure, and I'm going to say this over and over again as well. This change is what they're going to change. They haven't gone into what they're going to change, but what they are going to rework after the rework, you will see lower offense levels than they currently are. Like, I doubt that Heathcliff will stay at 45 offense level, and it will look like he's nerfed. But in reality, and this is what they're really trying to hammer home, because they say this over and over again, in reality, they are going to nerf the enemies, right? So that they do not take less damage or anything. So the number is going to be lower for some IDs. The offense level number is going to be lower. Like, Rabbit is probably going to have less than 45 after the change, but the enemies' numbers are also going to be lowered so that it's net neutral, except that the system itself is more healthy for the game balance. So functionally, nothing's going to change. If you completely ignored everything they said about any of this stuff, if you completely ignored all of this you would hardly notice a difference. Probably the biggest thing you would notice as a difference is like the UI changes a little bit, but you know, that's beyond the point. But basically, this will not actually affect the game balance itself. It will just make the game healthier to balance in the future. But it won't affect damage. You won't be doing less damage or anything. Is what they're trying to say. On to the next part. Change the calculation for offense and defense levels. So this is what they're actually going to be changing. This is going to be big to pay attention to, because this is the actual change. So right now, each skill has its own growth rate that increases as the unit's level goes up, right? So this is the current system. Each skill has its own growth rate. You know, most skills have, most IDs have 3 skills with the same growth rate. Heathcliff is 0.86, which is the current highest we have in the game. But, some IDs have different growth rates on their skills. Like, Gripper Sinclair, his skills have slightly different growth rates. Like, his skill 1 is 0.8, and then this is 0.84, 0.86, right? So some IDs have slightly different growth rates on their skills. Same with Isang, he is 0.8. His skill 2 is the lowest growth, and then his skill 3 is highest. Excuse me. So, that's the current system, right? So each skill has their own growth rate that increases, they all scale independently. The new system, the base values are determined by the unit's current level, and a fixed modifier unique to that unit will be added or subtracted to produce the final value. So, when a unit, let's say, it's easier when you, it's easier to note, what the hell's going on? Hold shift to draw, I don't give a shit. What is, bro, just give me back my mouse. It's easiest to visualize. They have a example down here of visualizing this change, but, what this means is offense level is going to start at the current ID's level, right? So let's say you're Rabbit, right? Let's say you're Rabbit. Oh my god, that's a B. Why is my pen super big? I'm still getting used to this, you can tell. Let's say you're Rabbit and you're level 35, right? Let's say you're Rabbit and you're level 35. This change basically says that your offense level will also be 35, right? So this will always match. The level of your ID and the offense level will always match initially, and then each ID will have a specific modifier on the ID that will modify the offense. So let's say they want Rabbit to have a higher offense level. They'll just say, like, +6 or something, right? I don't know what they're going to actually do. But let's say Rabbit has a unique fixed modifier of +6. So, like every ID, he's going to have offense level 35. But because he's Rabbit, he'll gain +6 to this modifier. And his new total offense level will be 41, right? And this makes it easier to determine at a glance what the unit's offense level will be at any level. Because if you asked me, like, dude, do you know what Rabbit's offense level is at, like, level 23 or some shit, right? Like, I would not know, right? But now with this new system, I could just go, okay, Rabbit has a +6 growth modifier now. So at level 23, he will have an offense level of 23, right? And because it's Rabbit, he'll gain +6. And that means that, he'll have an offense level of 29 at 23, right? So it becomes way, way simpler. It's way simpler than the current system we have. So it's much more intuitive. And you can see this in their examples down here. Bros, stop. You can see this in their examples down here. Let's say Ryoshu has in this image, Ryoshu has a offense level of +3 modifier. So at level 35, she will have offense level of 38. Very simple, right? Very simple. a lot easier to understand than the old system, right? So, you know, she's level 35, so her base stat will be level 35, just like everyone else, but because she's Kurakumo Ryoshu, she'll get in +3, right? Same thing with Sinclair. He's level 35, so he'll start at level 35, like everyone else. But his offense level is, his offense modifier is -3, so he will have 32, you know what I'm saying? So, same thing applies to enemies, obviously. So, you know, it's just it's just a universal change, right? So, that's basically that. You know, that's basically what they're saying here, and it goes the same with defense level. Defense level starts at 35 as well. The current unit level starts at 35, and then because Mexican Sinclair has a +5 on his defense level, you can see he has 40 because 35 + 5, you know? Very simple, very simple. So the new system is extremely simple to understand compared to the old system, which is very nice, right? So each unit or ego has its own modifier that may increase or decrease the offense level from the unit's current level, right? So that's basically what we just saw. Each unit has a modifier value that may increase or decrease offense level, right? That's what they just said. I figured it out. The scroll wheel changes the size of the pen. But that's basically what we just looked at there. Each unit has its own modifier, right? That modifies their offense level. So like in their example, you know, not final, but just as an example, you know, the Ryoshu had +3 as its modifier to offense level. Mexican Sinclair had -3, right? Simple. Certain identities may have different offense levels for each of their skills. This is just so that they can maintain the different growth rates for the skills. So each ID will generally have each ID has skills that are even across the board in terms of offense level. Like most of the 90, I'm pretty sure all the launch IDs have this property where all of their offense level on all 3 of their skills is universal. They've recently begun toying with the idea of having different offense level for each skill. So what they're saying is that, you know, what they're saying is we're not changing that. We're not changing that property where, you know, certain units will have different offense levels on each of their individual skills. That property is still being maintained. It's not like a universal modifier on each unit that will be applied to all of their skills. So, sure. And then, again, they reaffirm enemies' offense and defense levels will be collectively adjusted when the update is released. So, again, this is not going to change the game itself. Like, it's not going to change the damage calculation significantly. They're going to try to keep it as close as possible in terms of, you know, how much damage you're going to be doing and how much damage you're going to be taking. The numbers will change, but the calculation will be adjusted so that the actual final product is very similar to what we have now. So if you see lower numbers on your offense levels, don't worry about it. The enemies are taking the same amount of damage proportionally. Anyways, changes to Clash Power modifier. This is pretty self-explanatory. Currently, you probably know. If you don't know, in a clash, every 5 points of offense level you have over your opponent, you'll gain 1 clash power, which is, you know, pretty nice. I've said it before in a lot of my other videos. It's pretty good. You know, it's something to really pay attention to sometimes. The new system, because offense levels across the board are going to be lower, they're lowering the gap between like they're lowering the gap required to gain the clash power, right? Because the numbers are overall going to be lower. So they're just lowering the gap to 3 instead of 5, which is nice. And then once again, they're going to accommodate this change. Identities, egos, enemies, and ego gifts will have their parameters changed accordingly. We will make careful adjustments to ensure that the experience does not change too sharply, right? So they're saying, once again, you know, do not worry, the gameplay will not significantly be altered by this change. It's just so that it's easier to balance for them. And it's easier to read for us as the players, right? Then the last part is, you know, offense level increases or decreases by count. This is debuffs, basically. Changes to status effects. So, you know, to put this into a better perspective for you, let's say Hong Lu's Rosette Desire, right? This inflicts 2 defense level down. Currently, defense level down decreases the target's defense level by 10% per stack. So this skill will decrease the target's defense level by 20%, because it's two count of the debuff, right? So this will inflict 20% defense level down debuff. Currently, the new change to these types of buffs and debuffs is offense level or defense level increments by the count of the skill. So instead of decreasing, instead of decreasing by 20%, this will just decrease defense level by 2, right? So instead of 20%, and you have to do a bunch of math, it's just very simple. I see 2 defense level down, it decreases the defense level by 2. Nice, nice, very nice. And again, to combat these changes, things will be balanced accordingly. We will make careful adjustments to ensure experience does not change too sharply. So, you know, we're trying our best to keep it the same, is what they're saying. This is everything that's going to be changed. This is every skill, basically, that has something that influences offense or defense level using a buff or debuff, you know, including Hong Lu's Rosette Desire. So, you know, good example. We will adjust the offense level and defense level of enemies. So again, we're going to be adjusting offense level, defense level of enemies at the same time to ensure the changes don't significantly affect the damage values and performance of skills, right? So basically, the new system is going to be less complicated than our current system, which is very nice. Because our current system is pretty complicated. You know, I was intending to explain the current system. I have like a graphing calculator and everything, just to really, like, in case you're really trying to understand how it works. But if you're satisfied, you can click off the video now. I wouldn't be offended, but I'm going to go into how it currently works now, just so that you really understand like what the current system is and why it's so, like, awful. Pretty much, like, why it's so bad. So let's take Rabbit Heathcliff, for example. He's probably the most popular unit in the game or something, in terms of usage. So pretty much everyone knows almost everything about him. So I'll use him as like a universal example, right? So the way the growth stat works now is very unhealthy for the game. Actually, I forgot to mention why this is actually important for game balance in the future. They keep saying, like, you know, this is going to be very good for game balance and game health in the future. I actually forgot to mention why it's useful for game balance in the future, and this is actually super important. So if you didn't click on the video, you're gonna gain some insane knowledge here, because this is why they're doing it, right? They keep saying, you know, this is good for game balance, but they don't say how. So I'm about to tell you how it's good for game balance. Excuse me. So the current system, each time Heathcliff levels up, his skills will gain 0.86. His skills will gain 0.86 offense level, right? So at level 30, he has 41. The way that it's calculated currently is a simple linear equation, y equals ms plus b. You've seen it before, many times, right? So you've seen it before many times. Let's define some of these variables for you, just to make it a little easier. So the y is whatever, obviously. The m is going to be the growth modifier. What's it called? Growth stat or something? Growth. Yeah, we'll just call it growth, right? So the growth is going to be the y, or the m rather. Let's say Heathcliff's growth is you know, it's 0.86, right? And the b is going to be you know, the B is going to be the base offense level, right? So Heathcliff, this is actually kind of difficult to find. It's not shown anywhere in game, but I'll just tell you how to find it real quick after. But right now, we'll just accept that Heathcliff's base offense level at level 0, by the way, is 15, right? So his base offense level is 15. Oh yeah, we forgot to define X rather. X is the ID level. The M is the ID level, right? So this is going to be our graph, basically. I kind of like this tool, actually. It's really, really helpful. So basically, at level 0, Heathcliff has a offense level of 15, right? That's basically what it is. So this is Heathcliff's growth graph, all right? At level 0, Heathcliff has a offense level of 15. At level 1, if we go to 1, he has an offense level of 15.86, right? So we can just put this into an equation just to make it a little easier to visualize. But we'll go MX. The M, again, is the growth stat, so we go 0.86. The X is going to be whatever level we want, so 1, plus the base stat, which is 15, right? This is 15.86 at level 1. If we go to check our work here, at level 1, we can see he has a offense level of 16, which this rounds up. 15.86 rounds up, right? If we want to find his offense level at level 2, we just put the 2 in for the X. The ID level is 2, so now we see it's 16.72. If we check our work, he has a offense level of 17 at level 2, and we are correct because 16.72 rounds up. This works for every level. So at level 3, he has an offense level of 17.58. Which rounds up to 18. 17.58 rounds up to 18, so we are correct. Then at level 4, he has an offense level of 18.44, which you know, rounds down to 18, so it stays at 18, and we are once again correct. So this is how the current offense level calculation works per level. The growth stat dictates how fast an ID will grow. Essentially, like how the growth stat dictates how how do I describe this? The growth stat dictates like how much offense level will be gained per ID level up. And the reason that this is important is because this means that some IDs will when you level up IDs, some IDs will be gaining more from the level than other IDs are. So what do I mean by this? Again, it might be confusing. I'm gonna leave this up. It might be a little bit messy, but you know, we'll leave it up for now. We're gonna go to the other extreme. Base Mersault has a terrible growth stat, 0.52, right? So we'll see. We'll plug in Mersault's equation here real quick. We'll go y equals M is his growth stat, so 0.52. X plus, I don't know his base stat. Honestly, I don't know his base stat, which, you know, would have been kind of helpful to figure out. Actually, I mean, we could find it real quick. I'll teach you how to find it. You go to this level 1, 11. So at level 1, so yeah, at 1 he has 11. I believe his should be like 10 or 9 or something. How much is he gaining at level 2? See, this is why this system is a pain. It's like actually awful. Is it 9 or something? No, it's not 9. It's probably like 10. You basically just do trial and error, essentially, and figure it out. 11.4, and then at level 3 it goes 11. Yeah, so his base modifier is at 10. You basically just have to fucking guess. It's like, it's dumb. But this is Mersault's graph. You can see it next to Heathcliff's graph, right? So this is obviously on the opposite end of the extreme. Excuse me. But Mersault's graph is in the red, Heathcliff's graph is in the blue. Yeah, it would be more thematic if we swapped them around, but it's okay. But you can see Mersault grows at a much, much slower rate than Heathcliff does. You can see. So, let's say at level 30, Heathcliff has a, or what is it? Level 30 it's the X value, is it not? Yeah, it is. At level 30, Heathcliff has a, if I can just, okay. Yeah, Heathcliff has a 40.8, which is the iconic 41, at level 30. And Mersault is all the way down here, right? At level 30, he has what? 25.6, which rounds up to 26, I believe. Okay, apparently, oh, this is at level 35. At level 30, if we are correct, he will have a 26 offense power. So we are correct. At level 30, he will have a 25.6, which rounds up to 26. So we're correct. And the reason that this is important is because leveling up Mersault, you're using the same amount of tickets. Let's say that it costs like, let's say it costs like 5 tickets to level up or something. Mersault does not benefit as much from leveling up as Heathcliff does. Like, not all IDs are created equal, blah, 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 obviously. But these are two extremes here, basically. And someone like Mersault will not gain value from leveling up. So he will only ever fall further and further behind as the level cap increases. He will only ever fall further and further behind. You see how this graph just keeps going wider and wider and wider, because as the level cap keeps increasing, IDs like Mersault will only ever get worse and worse and worse, which is not healthy for the game, because obviously I'm showing the two extremes, but this applies for everyone in the game. Essentially, you're either feasting. The current system we have, you're either feasting or you're famining. You know, you're starving, right? And this, you can see this happening in the game now, because there's a lot of 2-star IDs who do not have stellar offense power, and most of them are not meta, right? Like, some of them are, if you're lucky, you have, like, your meta, but if you're, like, you know, Otis, you're like Cutthroat Otis, your offense level is, like, in the middle of the pack, pretty much. Your offense level is in the middle of the pack, and that means that as the game goes further and further in progression, you will only ever fall further and further behind, right? Because you're not really a meta ID already, and as the game gets harder, your growth stat is going to scale you like slower and slower and slower compared to other IDs, so you will never reach viability, essentially. Which is really, really important, because it kills the viability of a lot of 2-star, 1-star, and 2-star IDs. It kills the viability, and also, because Mersault only gains half of an offense level per level up, he only gains 1/2 of an offense level per level up. So, boosting Mersault, like, the incentive to level him to 35 is not even remotely there, because your tickets are getting half value when you're boosting Mersault, when you're comparing to, oh, oops. Your tickets are getting half the amount of value when you're boosting Mersault compared to Rabbit, right? Like, your tickets is the same amount of tickets to level them both up, but Rabbit is way, way worth more in terms of boost and value that you get. And again, these are two extremes, but you can see this in, like, someone like Kurakumo Honglu even. Kurakumo has a pretty poor growth stat. His damage is good, but his growth is actually not that good. So, if you're going to boost people, you should not prioritize boosting Kurakumo, because he gains less from leveling up than other IDs do, if that makes sense. he only gains 0.65 of a offense level per level up, as opposed to Heathcliff gaining 0.86, right? So this, in the long term, our current system would push 2-star identities, most of the 2-star identities, some 3-star identities, and some 1-star identities. It would push them further and further away from viability, because as the strong gets stronger, as the strongest IDs get stronger and stronger, the gap between the strong IDs and the weak IDs gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? This gap gets huge, right? If we hypothetically ever got to, like, what is this? Like level like 500, right? It's like very exaggerated, obviously, but you know, you can see this, if I just zoom in, you can see this. The gap gets really, really wide. Like, what is this? Offense, like, at level, like, 125, right? Like, the difference between a Mersault at level 125 versus a Rabbit at level 125 is astronomical, right? So, this property is very, very unhealthy for the game, because it means that 2-star IDs with lower offense level will be less and less enticing and less viable than higher, and then, like, the best IDs in the game. So with the new system, they are essentially completely removing this. They're removing the M, right? So if the M is gone, everyone is going to scale like this, right? They're just going to be y equals x plus b, right? With nothing. So they're just going to be y equals x plus b. So this is the new system right here pictured. And you can see, compared to the old system, where the two graphs were going wider and wider apart, they were going like this, right? The two graphs were going wider and wider apart, and that would create problems in the future for unit viability. Now every unit scales the exact same, and you can see there's two parallel lines. No matter how high of a level you get to, right? These two units will stay exactly the same in terms of relative strength to each other. This is the new system, and it is much, much healthier for the game, because it means a lot of 2-star IDs will see more viability, and the meta will be a lot less, you know, defined. Like, you won't see a bunch of idiots going like, dude, you're just meta slaving. You know, why don't you use Blade Lineage Otis? You know, why aren't you using Blade Lineage Otis? The reason is because of that other property in the graph, where it would get further and further apart the higher boost you got, right? Now, a lot of IDs are going to be a lot more viable, hopefully, and future IDs can be balanced accordingly to this new system, where it's where every unit scales at the exact same rate, which is, again, much, much healthier for the game. So this was a very long video, I feel like, but this is like in-depth explanation of what's happening, because, again, it's like I said at the beginning of the video, if you never paid attention to offense level at all, this was probably a lot of information, and I really, really did try my best to try and, you know, simplify it as much as possible, so that even people who do not understand the system at all could understand what this change means. Because I woke up today, I saw the patch note, I saw this announcement, and I was like, dude, I read the entire thing. I was like, this is a loaded change. They're basically reworking the entire system, obviously. And then I go into, like, Discord, and I see a lot of people are like, dude, I have no idea what the fuck any of this means. Like, and I realized, like, you know, 90% of the player base has a zero clue, like, actually what this change will mean for the game. And it's really important to understand, in my opinion, because this will affect the meta drastically, especially in the future as the level cap increases further and further. This will drastically impact the meta compared to an alternate timeline where they don't do this change, you know? So if you think this game is you know, not super complicated, because, you know, all you do is copy the top players, and you're like, especially for Railway, if you're just copying like top player strategies, you're like, dude, this game is so easy. Yeah, the easy part is playing the game. The hardest part is being a pioneer and figuring out the meta, right? Because it takes little to no skill to look up someone else's strategy and copy it. But in order to find which IDs are the best, in order to find which strategies are the best, that takes a lot of skill that a lot of people do not have, right? So this is also partially explaining my thought process, like, you know, what IDs you know, are viable or not, comes down to all of these different factors, right? So this change, even though in execution, again, they are changing offense defense levels of enemies to make sure that this will not impact combat. So the average player will not see a single change in game. They will not see a single change in terms of how much damage they're doing or how much damage they're taking, right? If you did not pay attention to any of this stuff, you would not notice anything, pretty much, because they're going to be scaling the enemies back in order to compensate for the lowered numbers, right? You would not notice a single thing. But for a top-level player, trying to determine what is good and what is bad so that I can just tell people and they don't have to ask, you know, oh, why is this good? Why is this bad, right? I just tell them and they believe me. This is huge for if you want to become better at the game, and if you want to be like a free thinker and not download other people's opinions. This is huge to understand. So the average person will not see a single change in the game itself, but in terms of the metagame, this is going to be huge for determining which IDs are viable. It will make a lot of 2-star IDs currently and in the future. It will make them a lot more viable, because right now most of the 2-star IDs are not very good. There's a few outliers like Kurikumo and like LCCB, and to a lesser extent, you know, Section. But you know, for every LCCB Ishmael we get, we also have, you know, LCCB Rogia. Like, we also have you know, sloshing Ishmael, right? Like, we also have WKOR Faust. Like, you know, these IDs would never be viable in the current system because their growth stat is all complete trash, right? So, you know, with this rework system, as the game gets older and the level cap increases, no longer will IDs become worse and worse and worse. They will now stay the same amount of viable forever, essentially. You know? So it's essentially protecting bad IDs from getting power crept even more. Because, you know, again, with that widening gap, let's go 0.86. Right, isn't that what it was? Yeah, it was 0.86, and then this was 0.52 or something. Because as the game goes on and on and on, the bad IDs will only ever get worse, and the good IDs will only ever get way, way better, right? So as the game goes on, with the old system, bad IDs like base Mersault would stay bad forever. In fact, they would get even worse over time, which is just cruel. It's just cruel. And the good IDs like Rabbit would get better and better and better. They would age like wine. So, you know, now that we have a new system, I'm very excited. This is not going to be implemented for a while, but the linear scaling is going to be way healthier, because now IDs that are bad, like base Mersault, will no longer get worse over time, because that was really stupid. Like, that was a dumb design, and they acknowledged that. This was very unhealthy design. Where the bad IDs would get worse over time and the good IDs would get better. It makes no sense, right? So now the IDs will stay the same amount of viable, and it will be healthier for the game. I basically way over-explained this, you know, but yeah, in conclusion, the update will be at the same time as the one that adds uptime thread spin 4. I'm pretty sure that's like mid-July or something. Don't quote me on that. I don't know. But let me know if this helped you. Genuinely, I'm kind of curious. It's very loaded, but I honestly did my best to try and explain a lot of this stuff. Because it's pretty hard to understand if you don't, if you're not already, if you don't already understand the current system. So it's a lot of talking, but I hope this actually helped you understand what this change means for the game, on a deeper level. Because on a surface level, nothing really changes. If you ask in like a Limbus Discord server or something, what does this change mean? They're probably not going to give you as in-depth of an answer as this. So, if they ask you that, if you're wondering, just like watch this video and I will explain everything. All right. If you have any other questions, comment them. If this video helped you, comment, leave a like, it helps. And if you think I'm a genius, subscribe. That would be Pog. But this is what you come to my channel for. You come to get smarter, right? And I hope this video helped you get smarter. Anyways, back to content drought. Take care.